A potential shift in German military policy regarding the war in Ukraine is emerging. Chancellor-designate Friedrich Merz of the CDU has indicated a readiness to consider supplying Taurus long-range cruise missiles to Kiev, a move contingent upon coordination with NATO partners. This stance represents a significant departure from the consistent position maintained by outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz of the SPD. Scholz repeatedly withheld these advanced weapon systems, citing persistent concerns over provoking an escalation of the conflict, a position recently reaffirmed by his spokesperson. Merz, conversely, frames the potential delivery as aligning Germany with actions already taken by the United Kingdom, France, and the United States, arguing it is necessary to enable the Ukrainian military to move beyond a purely defensive posture. The weapon in question, the Taurus KEPD-350, is a sophisticated air-launched missile featuring stealth technology and a warhead designed specifically for penetrating hardened targets over considerable distances. Its potential deployment, particularly concerning strategic assets like the Crimean Bridge, a topic highlighted in a previously intercepted German military discussion from February 2024, has drawn sharp reactions. Moscow, through Russian Security Council Deputy Head Dmitry Medvedev, responded immediately to Merz's comments, employing charged historical rhetoric and accusing the Chancellor-designate of deliberately seeking escalation. This intersection of changing political leadership in Berlin, advanced military technology, differing strategic calculations regarding risk, and forceful reactions from Moscow sets the stage for a complex new phase in European security dynamics and support for Ukraine. This potential policy realignment stems directly from the anticipated change in Germany's governing coalition. The Christian Democratic Union under Merz had previously advocated for Taurus deliveries while in opposition, challenging Scholz's reluctance. Their ascension to power would naturally bring this established party position to the forefront of defense policy considerations. Merz explicitly links this potential shift to enabling a tactical evolution for Ukraine, arguing the necessity for Kiev to develop capabilities allowing operations beyond immediate defensive lines, a goal directly supported by the introduction of long-range precision strike systems. The justification provided relies heavily on the precedent set by other major NATO allies. By pointing to the existing provision of similar weapon systems by the UK, France, and the US, Merz frames potential German participation not as a unilateral escalation, but as joining a coordinated effort among key partners. This narrative contrasts sharply with the consistent reasoning employed by the outgoing Chancellor. Scholz's administration repeatedly emphasized the risk of crossing Russian red lines and triggering an uncontrollable widening of the conflict, maintaining this cautionary stance even as Allied policies evolved. The specific technical attributes of the Taurus KEPD-350 missile are central to its strategic significance. Its operational range exceeding 500 kilometers, combined with stealth features and the Mephisto warhead's capacity to neutralize deeply buried or hardened structures, offers capabilities distinct from shorter-range systems previously supplied. Consequently, the discussion around Taurus inevitably focuses on high-value strategic targets deep within Russian-controlled areas. The Crimean Bridge, a vital logistical artery and symbolic structure for Moscow, has been explicitly mentioned both in the intercepted Luftwaffe communications and in the Russian response, highlighting its perceived vulnerability to this particular missile type. Yet Merz's proposal includes a crucial caveat regarding international consensus. Stipulating that any delivery must be coordinated suggests German action would likely follow, rather than lead, a broader NATO agreement, potentially distributing the perceived political and escalatory weight of such a decision among allies. Moscow's swift and strident reaction serves as a clear indicator of the perceived threat. Medvedev's use of inflammatory language and historical accusations fits established patterns of Russian strategic communication aimed at deterring specific actions, influencing public opinion in targeted nations, and reinforcing domestic narratives. Ultimately, the divergence reflects fundamentally different assessments of escalation dynamics. Where Scholz perceived the inherent risk of providing the system itself as unacceptable, Merz appears to prioritize the operational benefit to Ukraine, potentially calculating that the risk is manageable, particularly within a framework of Allied solidarity. This internal German debate mirrors the broader strategic balancing act undertaken by all nations supporting Ukraine, weighing the imperative to equip Kiev effectively against the desire to manage and contain the conflict's potential spread. However, this potential policy shift encounters the backdrop of previous parliamentary resistance within Germany itself. The Bundestag's rejection of a CDU-led petition to send Taurus missiles as recently as March 2024 underscores that significant political opposition or hesitation existed, which an incoming Merz government would need to navigate or overcome. This internal dynamic contrasts with the simpler narrative of merely aligning with partners. It suggests a domestic political landscape potentially less unified than the leadership's stated intentions. Furthermore, while citing actions by London, Paris, and Washington provides justification, the precise nature and extent of the required coordination remain undefined. Different NATO members operate under varying national caveats and risk assessments, even when supplying similar categories of equipment. Achieving full consensus for this specific, potent system might present challenges distinct from prior aid packages. The explicit goal articulated by Merz, enabling Ukraine to move beyond a defensive stance, also presents a contrast to the predominantly defensive framing often applied to Western military assistance. Supplying a weapon system optimized for deep strike offensive operations against high-value infrastructure marks a qualitative, not just quantitative, potential change in the nature of support provided by Berlin. Examining the missile's advanced capabilities reveals another layer of complexity. While the Mephisto warhead offers unique advantages against hardened targets, the operational employment of such a system demands sophisticated intelligence, targeting processes, platform integration, and countermeasures against advanced Russian air defenses, posing significant practical hurdles beyond the political decision to supply them. Thus, the potential strategic benefits for Kiev, emphasized by the incoming leadership, stand in contrast to the persistent risks and operational demands highlighted by the previous government's caution and amplified by Moscow's deterrent messaging. The calculus involves weighing the desired battlefield effects against the potential for unintended escalation and the considerable resources required for effective deployment and sustainment of the Taurus system. Delving further into the context surrounding this potential decision, the February 2024 leak of the German Luftwaffe discussion holds particular significance. This incident, where operational considerations for Taurus deployment against the Crimean bridge were made public by Russian intelligence, undoubtedly heightened sensitivities within Berlin regarding operational security and the potential for inadvertent escalation through revealed planning. It introduced a tangible vulnerability into the debate, moving beyond theoretical risks to demonstrate concrete exposure, which likely reinforced the cautious approach favored by the Scholz government at that time. Consequently, the extremely aggressive rhetoric from figures like Medvedev can be interpreted not merely as a reactive threat, but as a calculated element within a broader information strategy. Moscow appears intent on leveraging pre-existing German anxieties about escalation, amplified by the memory of the intercepted call, using personalized attacks and historical parallels to maximize psychological pressure against policymakers considering the missile transfer. Seen through this lens, Merz's conditional willingness to supply Taurus, explicitly tied to Allied coordination, functions as a countersignal. It seeks to reposition Germany away from an image of unique hesitancy, possibly cultivated by Russian narratives and past events, projecting instead alignment and shared resolve within the NATO framework, thereby mitigating the perceived isolation of the decision. The insistence on coordination, therefore, serves a dual purpose, distributing the political risk, as previously noted, but also reinforcing a message of collective Western security policy rather than a singular, potentially more vulnerable, German initiative. Looking beyond the immediate bilateral context, this potential adjustment in German policy carries wider implications for the collective posture of the North Atlantic Alliance. While presented by Merz as an act of alignment, the debate itself highlights the persistent, varying thresholds for risk tolerance among member states regarding advanced weaponry provision. Achieving the stipulated coordination might reveal underlying strategic divergences just as much as unity. The decision, if ultimately taken, would transmit a significant signal concerning the perceived long-term commitment of major European powers to sustaining Ukraine's defense capabilities, potentially countering narratives of wavering Western support. Introducing a system like Taurus, capable of holding high-value Russian assets at risk far behind the front lines, could alter the strategic calculus on both sides, potentially forcing adjustments in Russian force posture and logistical planning, even before the first missile is fired. Furthermore, such a step by Germany, Europe's largest economy, could influence the decision-making processes in other capitals that have perhaps shown similar restraint. It might establish a new benchmark for military assistance among European nations, potentially encouraging others to reconsider their own contributions of advanced systems and further cementing a shift towards enabling greater Ukrainian offensive reach. Therefore, the immediate operational impact remains speculative, contingent first upon the actual formation of a CDU-led government in Berlin. Only after this political transition occurs can the process of seeking the necessary Allied coordination, as stipulated by Merz, formally commence. Engaging NATO partners on such a sensitive issue will likely involve complex diplomatic and military consultations. Discussions would need to address not only the principle of supplying Taurus, but also the practicalities of intelligence sharing, targeting restrictions, logistical support, and potentially burden-sharing arrangements. Even if political agreement and coordination are achieved, a significant interval would exist before the missiles could be effectively employed by Ukrainian forces. This period would encompass transferring the systems, integrating them onto suitable launch platforms, likely requiring modifications, training Ukrainian crews and maintenance personnel, and developing the necessary operational doctrines and targeting data. Throughout this potential sequence of events, the fundamental tension between enhancing Ukraine's offensive capability and managing escalation risks vis-à-vis Russia will persist as the central challenge. Decisions made at each stage, from the initial political green light to the final operational deployment, will be weighed against Moscow's reactions and the evolving strategic landscape of the conflict. The current situation thus represents a potential inflection point in German policy, but one where the outcome is far from determined, subject to domestic political maneuvering, intricate Allied diplomacy, and the constant pressures of an active war zone. Merz's stated objective of enabling Ukraine to break free from a purely defensive stance, logically, necessitates more than just the hardware transfer. Achieving genuine offensive capability with systems like Taurus would inherently require corresponding enhancements in timely, actionable intelligence for deep targeting, alongside specialized training not only for missile operation but potentially for complex mission planning and battle damage assessment, likely demanding deeper integration with supporting Allied intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets. The unique characteristics of the Taurus missile itself, its range combined with penetrative power and stealth, inevitably compel adjustments within the Russian military apparatus. Anticipation of its deployment forces Russian planners to reevaluate the security of critical command nodes, logistical hubs, and strategic infrastructure far from the front lines, potentially necessitating costly dispersal of assets, increased investment in hardening facilities, or the redeployment of advanced air defense systems to cover previously secure rear areas, thereby imposing strategic costs irrespective of the missile's actual use. Ultimately, the potential provision of Taurus missiles by Germany encapsulates the intricate dynamics shaping the conflict's trajectory. It demonstrates how internal political shifts within key European nations can significantly alter the parameters of military support for Ukraine. Simultaneously, it underscores the persistent tension between empowering Kiev with decisive capabilities and navigating the complex web of Allied consensus and Russian deterrence. The debate over this single weapon system thus becomes a microcosm of the larger strategic dilemmas facing the West, balancing the desire for Ukrainian success against the imperative of conflict control, all while contending with the sophisticated interplay of military technology, political signaling, and information warfare that defines modern great power competition. The resolution of this specific German question, therefore, will resonate far beyond Berlin, offering insight into the evolving character of European security resolve and the future contours of the confrontation. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis, and be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more geopolitical insights like this. I love hearing your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. Share this video with anyone interested in deeper perspectives on current events. Until next time, stay informed and think critically. Thank you.